You went from the manufacturing as being the major employer to now the hospital. And healthcare is the major employer in just about all of our counties around here right now.
"40 Years of the Business Journal" is sponsored by Comco and these participating sponsors.
Recall the economic environment back then.
So it was one that we had more heavy industry here. We continue to have heavy industry, but it was looking for expansion opportunities. The Ellwood Group was here, and they knew that they wanted to continue to create more of the business, I'll say. The location in Newcastle, they had Ellwood Quality Steel, but they did not own the site that they're currently in, the entirety of the site. They knew that they needed to expand, so that was an opportunity. We also knew that there were contaminated sites within the community that needed to be redeveloped. The Johnson Bronze is one that was successful. Richardson Cooling Packages is there, Rocca Foods is there, as well as Youngstown Group. So that was a good project. It took several years to do. The city was in a state where they knew that more redevelopment had to occur in the industrial zone, but they needed to have the environment the environment had to be cleaned up, and then they could go into redevelopment mode. The Shenango China site and the DuPont Junk site were other ones that they were looking to redevelop, and it took us quite a while to do those. From the DuPont Junk site, it was highly contaminated, and the DEP came in, really helped us to redevelop that site with the cleanup, and we now have Newcastle Holdings, where CNHI Holdings, which is the presses that they use to produce the Newcastle News and other newspapers, and their whatever else that they produce down there. Covanta is down there, as far as a processing company for some kind of sludge that they do. And the challenge continues to be Shenango China itself. 30 years that it has sat there and not been put back to full reproductive use.
What are some of the other challenges that you faced in economic development back then?
It was financing. We did not have enough dollars, and to this day we still don't have enough dollars to do all of the work that we need to do. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has always been our partner, but they've never had enough financial resources to really support all of our communities here in Western PA with the kind of funding that we need to redevelop sites. I'd say that over the years, DEP has recognized, and the legislature has recognized, that we need to stop having to do as much in the way of environmental protection by removing soil, and now it's more of encapsulating and a reuse of the sites. So that's been helpful. But the financing arm still needs even more funding.
What do you see as some of the wins in economic development in Lawrence County over the years that you've been involved?
So Shenango Commerce Park and all of the development that has occurred there, which is basically in 40 years in the making. It does take time, but you look at Berner International, I think maybe you were here just a couple weeks ago when they had the solar panels, but that producer of air curtains and relocating there and really building that business has been great. You also have New York Blower, which is adjacent to Burner International. They have expanded and grown tremendously, and they produce industrial fans. Ferguson Perforating is another one that's there in the Shenango Commerce Park. They came in probably in the late 90s, and they've been great as far as continuing to have their business established here and employing people. Finally, the soap plant. I don't know if you ever were there. It was one of the first speculative buildings that was produced in the 80s and 90s. And the company that has been in there now for the last 30 years almost, I think 25 years, is dedicated to making soaps that can be used to clean all kinds of buildings throughout at least the country, if not the world. Sometimes people don't realize the international flavor of things. I know Burner has facilities up in Canada. They do work all over the world too. We have Augustine Pizza and Pizza Joe's, Joe Seminara's corporate headquarters there at Shenango Commerce Park. And then finally, another one that's really interesting is Keystone Compliance. Keystone Compliance has its one building there at Shenango Commerce Park, and I think they test boxes for Amazon maybe there. And then Keystone Compliance is also here in the city of Newcastle, and they do all kinds of electronics testing. So it's like pretty widespread as far as the industries that are here. You go down into Ellwood City, and they have had their heavy industry down there that has been a success story over the years. That's Ellwood Forge down there. In Medco was certainly one. Unfortunately, they've just announced that they closed their facility, but they were there for a good long time also. When you go out to Union Township, you're basically looking at a lot of commercial development out there. And though that certainly is great for our community, it's not one that we really concentrated on from an economic development standpoint. It was more like produce products, export them outside the area, import fresh dollars, so that our businesses could grow and our workforce could be sustained. The LCEDC and the Lawrence County Chamber are affiliated now. Right. So we're sitting inside the office of where they're located now, and we've got the Governor's Action Team Director who's sitting there. And all of a sudden he looks out and sees this truck from Altium Packaging that's like almost coming at us. And he says, what in the world are they doing using that alley? And it's like, they can't make it around this curve. Hey, that was the start of $1 million grant that we got to improve things. So from that part, it was kind of fun and exciting. We certainly had some experiences with David Choi when it comes to the Shenango China, going up to Canada to visit with him to try to work out deals that just never seemed to succeed, and they still haven't to this day. Workforce has become the key issue, that we don't have enough people to fill the jobs that we have available, or they aren't trained properly to do those jobs. That wasn't the case when I came 30 years ago. We had more than enough people hunting for jobs. Additionally, you went from the manufacturing as being the major employer to now the hospital. And healthcare is the major employer in just about all of our counties around here right now. We have to be complementary with one another, and that has been very difficult to break down those barriers. Silos need to be broken down from the standpoint of the organizations. I think that the affiliation between LCEDC and the Chamber is a good thing, and we need to have more of those affiliations. Everybody is working hard but it's not all, we're not all rowing together, you know. We're in separate little boats.
What do you see for the future here?
I think that we need to be aggressive about marketing ourselves as communities that have a good quality of life. We haven't done a good enough job about that. People who come from other areas are really impressed with what we have, but we ourselves still demean ourselves, are negative to ourselves. We're not going to go back to what it was like in the 50s and 60s and 70s, early 70s, but we still have a lot of opportunity, and we have to look forward instead of backward.
"40 Years of the Business Journal" is sponsored by COMCO and these participating sponsors.